All right, so our presenters for today are Lou Mayo and Andy Fracknoy. They'll tell you a little bit more about themselves once we get started here. I am your technical host today, Ann Holland. If you have any problems, please send me a chat down in that bottom window. I will be watching those. One just popped up right now. Hopefully all is good. So someone has just asked about weird feedback. This is my reminder to all of our panelists, if you're not the one talking, to go ahead and click the little mute button next to your name so that people don't hear us working and typing and eating lunch. I will do that once I'm done talking. This is also my opportunity to remind any of you who did not hear about this webinar through my system, if you came here from Programming Librarian or COSLA or the LPI Explorer program, please go ahead and drop me an email to the address listed at the bottom of your screen there so I can add you to our newsletter list. We typically send 1 or 2 newsletters or emails a month. I'm not going to spam you or anything, but that's going to be your best bet to hear about more of these exciting programs. So really quickly, before I hand the power over to Andy, who'll be going first, just want to give you guys a quick overview of our agenda. I know you're all busy with summer reading, so we're trying to keep it quick here. So Andy's going to start us off with explaining what an eclipse is and what will be happening in the continental U.S. during the 2017 event. Then we're going to hand it off to Lou, who is going to talk about NASA's role in the eclipse. Then back to Andy, who's going to talk about how libraries will participate. Lou's going to tell us a little bit more about safe eclipse viewing, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A. If the group stays this size, I will probably unmute everyone so that we can just ask questions. If it gets much bigger, we'll just have that Q&A down in the chat box. So before I pass the little ball of power, hello Lou, before I pass the little ball of power over to Andy, I did just want to say a special welcome to all of our attendees who are not librarians. I did send this out to a couple museum groups as well, and there are a lot of people on here who it looks like are interested in partnering with their libraries during the eclipse. So I hope everyone gets a chance not just to ask their questions, but look at the attendee list and see if there's any potential partners on here for you as well. So Andy, I am passing the ball of power over to you. You now have control of the slides, and you can get us started.
All right. And can my slides go up? Do I just go ahead and make them go?
Just go ahead and make them go. It's unfortunately going to look different on everyone's computer.
Here we go. All right. So, well, welcome everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Andrew Fracknoy. I'm an astronomer. I teach at Foothill College near San Francisco in California, and I also do a lot of outreach work in astronomy with teachers and librarians, museum educators, and so on through the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. And Lou and I share the privilege of being on a national task force for the American Astronomical Society exactly about the topic of today, which is this upcoming total eclipse, which represents a tremendous educational opportunity and a tremendous challenge at the same time. So let me tell you a little bit about the eclipse, and then we'll talk about the consequences. This is the being called the All-American eclipse because it's the eclipse visible in one country only. The total eclipse is visible in one country only, and that's the United States. So we're going to hear a lot of pro-U.S. kind of discussions as we go along. The partial eclipse we'll see is visible in many more places. Now, just for those of you who are not astronomy-minded, here's what's happening during an eclipse. There's a remarkable coincidence as we view the moon and the sun from Earth. They happen to be the same exact size. And so when the moon gets in front of the sun, when their orbits intersect, as can happen roughly every 6 months or so, you get an eclipse where the moon covers up the sun. Sometimes that eclipse is total, where the sun is completely covered up from your perspective, and sometimes it's just partial, where only part of the sun is covered by the moon. Let's see. When you have a total eclipse, it's one of the most spectacular things in nature. When the moon covers the sun completely, the atmosphere of the sun, which is completely overwhelmed usually by the brightness of the sun. That faint atmosphere around the sun comes out. You can see the activity on the surface of the sun, and it's absolutely spectacular because the sky goes dark in the middle of the day. The stars come out, a kind of eerie darkness descends on the world, and it's a remarkable thing to experience. Even for the few minutes of totality, people remember it for the rest of their lives. The idea is shown here in this diagram, where as the moon gets in front of the sun, the moon's shadow makes a spot on the Earth, and over time that spot moves as the Earth and the moon go through their motions. For a couple of hours, that spot moves across the Earth, and that's what's going to happen in the eclipse, which is August 21, 2017. Here is a satellite view, a view from a space station of just this kind of spot on the surface of the Earth. And let me move to the next slide. Here is how the spot will distribute itself during the August 21 eclipse. The total eclipse of the sun begins on a beach in Oregon, goes diagonally across the country, and finishes up on a beach in South Carolina. During this time, the path of the eclipse will be roughly 60 miles wide, and you have to be in that 60-mile wide path to see the eclipse's total. Everyone else in the United States and everyone else in North America will see the partial eclipse. Only the people in this path will see the total eclipse. And interestingly, the path of the total eclipse this time goes through none of the major metropolitan areas of the United States. It does skirt a little bit through St. Louis. The eclipse is visible in Nashville, Tennessee, but for the most part, it's a rural eclipse, which is great for those who love camping, but it's not very cooperative in terms of the largest number of people in the United States being able to see it. Now, these are the states where the eclipse is going to be total. And you can see that, for example, it goes through Illinois, but not through Chicago. And so you can see the states that are involved, but only a small portion of each of these states will actually have the total eclipse. As I said, for most of the United States, there will be a beautiful but much less spectacular partial eclipse visible. And the issue for the partial eclipse is that some part of the sun is still visible, so to view it, you need to protect your eyes. And we're going to talk later about the exact methods that you can use to watch this kind of partial eclipse safely. Here is a map, and again, this will be available in much more detail in the material on the web that we'll make available to you. But here's a map that shows what percentage of the sun will be covered in different parts of the United States. In the yellow zone, the eclipse will be total, and then as you move away from it, you can see that 90%, 80%, 70% of the sun is covered. The population statistics for 2017, we estimate that the number of people in North America that will have the partial eclipse accessible to them is almost 500 million. And this is the challenge that we want to talk to you about today. How can we, in the internet era, where all of a sudden there will be a lot of excitement about the eclipse in August 2017, how can communities be prepared to deal with all that interest relatively suddenly? And we thought that libraries, and for those of you from museums, of course, museums should be a focus for their communities. That's where information, that's where safe eclipse viewing glasses, that's where suggestions for what to do and more information could be available. And this could be a tremendous community program that libraries could put on and have the grateful support of their community. We'll talk later about who else you can get to join you in this. We'll talk about the fact that there are relatively inexpensive glasses that can protect your eyes during a partial eclipse and allow you to look at the sun without hurting them. I'm not going to dwell a lot on these tables. Here are some tables that show the biggest cities in the United States, and how none of them will have the 100% eclipse. And again, this table will be available in the material that will be available to you free. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but just to emphasize that none of the largest cities in the US will have a total eclipse, but many of them will have quite an impressive partial eclipse. For example, in Indianapolis, 91% of the sun will be covered. In Washington, D.C., 81%, and so on. Here are some cities where the eclipse will be total: Salem, Oregon, Casper, Wyoming, the metropolis of Carbondale, Illinois, and so on. I can't resist mentioning that a colleague and I wrote a book for teachers and museum educators about activities that you can use to get students or the public interested in solar science and the science behind eclipses. And it's from this book at the National Science Teachers Association that the organization has very kindly made available an 8-page booklet all about this eclipse, which you can obtain free of charge. And I've put the website here that you can go to get this 8-page background information. Now, that's not the only place you can get background information. Many people have already put up eclipse websites, and Lou Mayo is going to tell you more about all the efforts that NASA is going to undertake to make reliable information about the eclipse and viewing of the eclipse available to the whole country and to the world. But I wanted to begin by giving you this quick introduction to make sure that you understand what's happening. And now I'm going to turn things over to Lou Mayo.
Let's see if I can work this thing here. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so I'm Lou Mayo, and I am astronomer and the program manager here at NASA Goddard for their heliophysics education program, and a professor of astronomy at Marymount University. NASA is very interested in this eclipse, to use it to engage the entire country and beyond in this very exciting celestial event. If you were to do a search on Eclipse 2017 or something of that nature, you'd find hundreds, thousands of websites that refer to it, many of which have very good information about the eclipse timing, and so on. So NASA is going to focus on things that NASA can do uniquely, as we say, NASA as only NASA can. Let's see if I can. There we go. One of the things NASA does very well is explore the universe. And so we're going to use this eclipse kind of as a hook to show the public many of the new discoveries that NASA has made through their spacecraft and other methods. And we're going to kind of lead off from the eclipse to other related areas, such as lunar science. The moon is involved in the eclipse, right? So we'll be talking about lunar science and the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and what it's learning about the moon. I'll just mention a few of these. Exoplanet detections, because in order to detect exoplanets, one method out of 6 or so is to watch a transiting planet move in front of its star and diminish the light. So we'll be talking about exoplanets and the possibilities for life elsewhere in the universe, among other things. So we're going to really focus a lot on what NASA can do and what NASA has done in these fields that are related to the eclipse. One of NASA's really valuable assets is its people. And so we will be having on our website interviews with NASA scientists, NASA mission scientists, talking about their journey of exploration, looking at the sun and the way the sun impacts the solar system, the moon, planets. Sometimes there are eclipses on other planets, although no total eclipses, as well as exoplanets and astrobiology, kind of the full suite. We will be seeing some live and some pre-recorded scientist interviews. Of course, another thing that NASA does uniquely well is space missions. And so we will be talking about our space missions, some of which will actually be able to view the eclipse. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is orbiting the moon, we are hoping will be able to take a picture of the lunar shadow on the Earth on the west coast, and then as LRO orbits back around the moon, take a picture again and see that shadow on the east coast. This is something we're planning on. We don't have confirmation yet, but we're working on confirmation. The Discover spacecraft with its high-resolution EPIC camera will be taking pictures of the moon as it passes in front of the Earth. And although we are not certain the International Space Station may be in position, it's a long time out, so we don't know yet. But we are trying to determine if the space station will be in position to take images of the lunar shadow on the Earth. So let's see. There we go. We have a number of existing NASA resources which can be used in schools and community groups and museums across the country, as well as libraries, to teach the science of eclipses, as well as these connected areas. One of them is NASA Wavelength, who many of you know, was designed for teachers and has a lot of education products and programs that you can access on the website by grade level or topic area or other criteria. And one's Eyes on the Solar System, which is a three-dimensional interactive view of the solar system, as well as it's the missions that we've sent to study it, and it will have the lunar eclipse programmed into it so that you can watch the eclipse in a simulated fashion. International Observe the Moon Night is a big program that we have where we ask people to get out and look at the moon, and that will be occurring approximately a month before the eclipse. So we'll have many eclipse themes embedded in International Observe the Moon Night. We also have a program called Small Worlds Week, which got started as 2 years ago as NASA was spending a lot of time and interest in comets and asteroids. And we'll be holding Small Worlds Week July 10th. And this is an online program where for the first 4 days we'll provide information on eclipses and the science of the sun and the moon, and then on the last day,
hey, Luke, if I can interrupt you, Lou, if I can interrupt you real quick.
Answering questions for the general public.
Lou, I'm going to go ahead and turn off your video. I think your bandwidth is a little limited, and we're having a hard time hearing you.
All right.
Let me.
Tell them to start again.
I might actually need you to click the video button. It looks like I have no power here. Perfect. Go for it.
Okay. So on July 14th, we'll have scientists from around the country answering your questions on Facebook and Twitter about the eclipse. We have a number of interesting programs that we're working on, such as the history of eclipses, music related to eclipses, and newspaper articles and how the public experiences eclipses. And that will be present on our site. We have a whole variety and a whole spectrum of hands-on science programs we'll be offering everywhere, anywhere from just looking at the moon, maybe even sketching an image and sending it in, all the way through publishable research that will be done in partnership with NASA scientists, measuring the temperature of the corona and coronal flow velocities and things of that nature. So a whole suite of activities that people can do and be recognized for with certificates of completion. We're also going to be hosting hands-on maker activities for the eclipse so that you'll be able to make various things in 2D and 3D formats. Here you see one such very simple activity where you just find the right size hole in a piece of plastic here, which will be used as a pinhole camera to project the image of the eclipse. So we're going to have a number of these maker activities. we will have an events map. And on the events map, you'll be able to see who's doing what for the eclipse. Is there an eclipse party or star party near you? Maybe a museum or a library will have special programs devoted to the eclipse. Or maybe there will be people observing the eclipse, and you'll amateur astronomers and that kind of thing. So you'll be able to see all of that from our Eclipse Events map, along with information about each event. And then you can you'll be able to say, hey, here's some things happening in your community, and here's how you can be involved. We have a science visualization lab at Goddard, which will be showing some very interesting animation of the eclipse, and they'll all be downloadable from our website for your use. And finally, we have a website which is coming soon. Once we clear all of the hurdles and authorities from NASA headquarters, we'll be launching this website that will have all of these resources that I just mentioned included. So let's see, I think I will stop there and hand it back to Andy.
All right. Thank you, Lou. So here we go. I think this is my next slide. So there's a lot to chew on in this discussion of the eclipse, if you'll pardon the pun. And so I wanted to talk now a little bit more specifically about ideas we astronomers have batted around about how libraries, and since I know some of you are museum people, this also applies to museums, can help. In particular, what we're concerned about is that although astronomy nerds and eclipse chasers are already very aware of this eclipse and making reservations in the zone of totality, the public in general is probably not going to become eclipse savvy and eclipse aware until the summer of 2017. And at that point, a lot of people are suddenly going to want a lot of information, and a lot of people are going to wonder what they're going to do during the eclipse. Now, people who have time and tremendous interest are likely going to find their way to the tiny zone, the narrow zone of totality. But I think most people in the country will simply want to see the partial eclipse for themselves, and will try to see the total eclipse on their various screens. And there are already NASA projects and other projects to broadcast the eclipse, actually to make movies as the eclipse goes along, and to have live video throughout the country. And that'll be a great help for those who can't get to the zone of totality, but it won't solve the problem of how we can help the average person that Monday morning in August in 2017, or Monday midday, depending on where you are in the country, to actually view the partial eclipse safely. And we thought that that's a place where libraries could really be a major force for good in the country. And we hope to have much more detailed information available about how libraries can participate through the StarNet. We'll be making that available throughout the coming year. But since many of you plan in advance, we thought we'd want to plant this thought in your ear, that if you could begin to have eclipse information sessions in your library in the spring of 2017, and perhaps collaborate with other institutions in your community, get people perhaps used to thinking of your library as Eclipse Central for the year, what a tremendous public service that could be. And we wanted to mention a few partners that you might want to get together with. If you are in a community where there's a local college or university, they're likely to have either an astronomy or physics department where someone is teaching introductory astronomy. If you're not in a college or university setting, there might be a high school physics teacher who's really into astronomy, or an earth science teacher who might want to partner with you. If you have a science museum in your community, of course, all the science museums will be getting lots of information and doing things about the eclipse. A nature center where there might be an astronomy enthusiast. But in particular, in case you didn't know, I wanted to make you aware of another resource, which is amateur astronomers. There are clubs of amateur astronomers throughout the country, hundreds and hundreds of clubs of astronomy enthusiasts, and many of them do outreach, want to help the public understand astronomical ideas. Those outreach groups are all joined together in something called the NASA Night Sky Network, run by the Astronomical Society of the Pacific for NASA. And there on the slide I've given you the website. You can go to that website and put in your community, put in your zip code, and see if there is a club near you, an amateur astronomy club near you that does outreach, and contact them. And they might be able to help you to do information sessions in the spring and summer of 2017. And they may also be able to bring telescopes and other safe viewing devices to the library during the day of the eclipse and help you have some sort of eclipse party in your setting. There is a very small possibility, we won't know yet, that money might be available to help libraries purchase reasonably priced eclipse glasses in quantity, but we're not sure about that. We'll let you know through the network if that's available, through the StarNet Library Network. Also, there's a grant to get Girl Scout troops around the country up to speed on the eclipse, and that might be another community resource that you could partner with, is your local troop of Girl Scouts who may be doing this as an outreach project themselves. So those are a few ideas to get our discussion started, and we'd of course love to talk with you more about how libraries can be involved in getting the information to the public. And now I'll turn things back to Lou.
Okay. I'm going to finish up then here with a single slide on eclipse safety. So here we have an amazing celestial event that requires that you look at the sun to see it. And so that is, you know, that's a reason for a little bit of concern, but it turns out that it is very easy to view the eclipse safely in a variety of ways. So first of all, you don't want to look at the sun, just look at the eclipse just with your unaided eyes, except if you're in the path of totality and the moon is completely covering the sun, then you can look at the eclipse safely. But unless it's a complete eclipse, you should not. So there are different methods that you can use to observe the partial eclipse safely. And they kind of fall into two categories. The first is direct observation, where you are looking directly at the eclipsed sun. And the other is indirect observation, where you're looking at a projection of sorts of the sun. For direct observation, Andy has already mentioned that there are many eclipse glasses with filters on them that can be purchased very inexpensively. What you want to look for in those cases is that the company that you're purchasing from produces ISO compliant filters, ISO compliant glasses. And this will ensure that you have glasses that have the right transmission properties in the visible and the infrared and the ultraviolet for safe viewing. And there are certainly a number of companies that do that. If you're viewing with a telescope, you can buy solar filters for a telescope. Those solar filters must be affixed to the end of the telescope, not the side of the telescope with the eyepiece that you look in, but the very front end of the telescope. That's important. And you can also purchase solar filters for telescopes fairly easily. A quick web search will show you what's available. The other way to view an eclipse is by indirect methods. An indirect method means that you're projecting the image of the eclipsed sun onto some other surface. For example, you can make an eclipse box. You see a picture of it here in the middle image, where you have a little pinhole in a box that lets light through and acts actually as a lens that projects a small image of the eclipsed sun on the back of the box. It's kind of a fun thing to do. It turns out you can also use your fingers. You can take one hand with fingers spread a little bit, put another hand over it to make a crosshatch, and those tiny spaces between your fingers will act as a pinhole and project the image of the eclipse sun down on a piece of paper or on the ground. This also happens with leaves on a tree during an eclipse. If there's a tree nearby, you might see hundreds of images of the eclipse projected down onto the ground from the light from the eclipse passing the edges of leaves and making images of the eclipse on the ground. So there are lots of ways of viewing the eclipse safely. No one should be afraid to view the eclipse because there are these wonderful, easily obtained methods. And I'll just mention that NASA is working with the American Astronomical Society, the group that Andy and I are working with for the eclipse, to construct a kind of common language on the a common language safety method that will describe a lot of what I've just said and maybe a little more detail on how you can view and enjoy the eclipse safely. So I will end there and except to say that the NASA Eclipse 2017.nasa.gov website is coming soon, and I believe we've set a schedule of 1 month to have it fully reviewed and up on our website. So stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. That was very, very informative. I have been answering some questions, easy questions, as they've popped up in the chat window, but I'm wondering if anyone has any more specific questions they would like to ask Lou or Andy. If you do, please go ahead and put those in the chat box, and I will read them out. One of the questions someone did have earlier, which I attempted to answer, is they wanted to know what ISO number they're looking for when they're looking for ISO compliant glasses. Andy, is that something you could answer?
I'm not very familiar with the ISO numbers. Lou, do you know?
I think I have it, yes.
Oh, excellent.
It is ISO 12312-2:2015. I believe that's the ISO number. You will see any company that sells eclipse glasses will, yes, that is the number. Will have that affixed to the glasses or in their promotional literature, you can ask about it.
Excellent. That's perfect. Thank you. My answer was go to the website that I know does it right and make sure it matches them. So that answer was much better. We've got another question here. Allie wants to know if we can share the Total Eclipse website URL again.
Well, there's the NASA website that Lou just mentioned, and I put back up the slide where you can, if you go to the Solar Science website at the National Science Teachers Association website, there you can click on a link to this free 8-page booklet all about the eclipse with the tables I showed you and where and when it's visible and how to construct the box that Lou was talking about. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is also going to be up on the StarNet website, the StarNet Libraries website, right?
That is correct. And I do have someone asking if they can reuse the slides you guys used in this presentation after I post them.
Yes, you may.
Yes, it's fine with me.
Excellent, thank you.
I do want to mention one more thing that's kind of glaring that I omitted it, and that is that NASA will be in Carbondale, Illinois, which has, I guess, arguably the longest duration eclipse, and we will be webcasting with NASA Edge through the entire eclipse. That will be picked up by NASA TV, as well as many broadcast affiliates, and we'll have the interviews with the scientists and live streaming from along the path and all kinds of things for the public. So that will be available on our eclipse2017.nasa.gov site on the day of the eclipse.
Spectacular, and we hope to be at a couple libraries across the country too doing similar things. So we will at some point, it'll be both on that NASA website and also on the StarNet website, listing all of those opportunities for people who are either outside the path or perhaps just want to have a backup in case the weather is bad to tune in. Someone also asked, oops, sorry, I've lost the question, if the sky will get darker even if they have a cloudy sky.
The answer is yes, and sadly I've experienced that. I was in Paris for the 1999 eclipse and took a train up to Soissons where it was going to be total. There's a big event there, and I have pictures of me standing with my telescopes that I've lugged all over the world with an umbrella because it was raining. I got a few views of the eclipse. I did not get pictures of totality, but boy, could you see the darkness just descend fairly quickly over the land. It was impressive.
Right. So we should just mention again that it only gets dark if you're in the zone of the total eclipse. For most of the country where it's a partial eclipse, there won't be a significantly visible darkening of the sky, and you'll have to use glasses or the indirect viewing that Lou mentioned to get a view of the partial eclipse.
Yes, thank you, Andy. That's an important clarification.
Indeed, and it's worth mentioning that you don't need completely clear skies either. If you guys go to the StarNet Facebook page, you'll see some of the pictures we took during the Mercury Transit last month, and one of those pictures, which is absolutely beautiful with some cloud cover in it, we could barely see the sun until we were looking through the actual telescope, and we still got a really good picture of the transit. So the sun's bright, you can still see what's going on. Oh, that's a great question, Donna. Someone asked where they can access the download for a 3D printer viewer.
We'll have that on the NASA Eclipse website when we launch.
Excellent. I'm excited for that too.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for more questions, maybe I'll just say, to amplify what Lou said, that not only are amateur astronomers and those in the public who love looking at the sky excited about this eclipse, but even scientists are still excited about this eclipse. When the moon eclipses the sun, as I said, the outer atmosphere of the sun, the part we call the corona, becomes visible. And that's something that even scientists today are still studying. We learned about the corona, and we learned about many aspects of the behavior of the sun during past eclipses. And as Lou mentioned, there will be scientists trying to move along with the eclipse and to make measurements of things about the sun during the eclipse in the 2017 eclipse window.
That's certainly right, Andy. And as we found out at the Carbon American Astronomical Society Eclipse meeting just last week, there's still some uncertainty as to the diameter of the sun, and it turns out that you can use eclipse with a little clever filtering and video to more accurately determine the diameter of the sun. We're hoping to have that up on our website too, if you want to participate in that.
Excellent, and I do have a question about how people get on the Museum Alliance listserv. I am putting the web address right now of how to get to that site. So you just sign up and list yourself as a site. Libraries are more than welcome to join. It doesn't have to just be science centers, and during the sign-up process, you just check the relevant boxes, and I'm almost certain there's going to be one that's specifically about the eclipse. So Tom is one of our Discover Space librarians. Tom asked about the solar filters on the back of the telescope and not on the eyepiece, and he asked if there's a way to buy the material without getting an actual filter that's made for one specific size telescope. You can do that. Normally you can purchase them at Sky and Telescope. They are sold out right now. You can also purchase them at many camera stores. It's called black light paper if you're doing it for a camera. They will be able to tell you if they have one that is suitable for telescopes as well. They're very knowledgeable about that. Oh, thank you. And Amelia has listed her email address too for Museum Alliance questions.
Although we should say for those people who are not telescope experts that using a filter on a telescope, especially where the public is viewing, where the filter is not securely on the telescope, is very dangerous. Many people have talked about how in the excitement of the eclipse, your hand tends to move in directions you don't want it to, and suddenly there's the filter slipped off the telescope, and it can be quite a problem. So we recommend, I think, that whatever way you have of observing the sun, make sure you secure the filter in such a way that there's no chance for it to slip off.
Yeah, we've used even very strong rubber bands in the past, but you have to make sure that you have tons and tons of extra paper so that you can pull it all the way back and not worry the slipping. I agree, definitely. It's not much more expensive to buy the ones that are telescope specific, and if anyone has questions about those, I am almost ready to actually post a video about some of those things as well. So that'll be on our blog soon. All right, so if there aren't any other questions, we definitely went over time, but I think it was well worth it. We will definitely be having another Eclipse webinar in the future, probably August, September, after summer reading has slowed down. Have another question. Oh, Paul is telling me to mention that we'll be offering more webinars on this topic. Feed into it. So yeah, there will be another one in the fall and then another one in the spring as people are prepping for the eclipse. So again, please do make sure that you send me an email if you're not already on our newsletter list so that I can tell you about those. And take a look once I post all of this information at the transcript tomorrow to get all of these nifty websites everyone's been posting. Lou, Andy, any last words?
I just want to say that
about covers it.
To be working with libraries, and we see libraries as tremendous resources for getting information out about this. There are only about 6,000 astronomers in the country, and we can't cover the whole country. So we're going to need lots of help, and we appreciate whatever libraries can do.
Excellent.
Well,
perfect. I'm going to stay on for another couple minutes here. I see some people have asked me to leave the chat up so that they can just steal some of these websites. So if you need to do that, I will leave it open for a few minutes. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us. As I said, the event recording and the slides, which Lou and Andy said you could use, thank you so much, will be available on our website tomorrow morning. And email me if you want to keep apprised about future webinars. Have a great day, everybody.